Jumping right into it, in a recent people-to-people study, we found that 57% of Australians have avoided a new job or promotion because of fear of failure. But what does this hesitation really cost? 4 in 5 Australians have stayed silent at work to avoid making mistakes, and half believe their workplace does not tolerate failure in the pursuit of innovation. From missed opportunities to stalled workplace cultures, the impact of fear reaches far beyond individual careers. Is fear of failure becoming one of the biggest barriers to both personal growth and workplace progress? To discuss this further, we are joined today by Melanie Smith, Leadership and Career Coach at Metanoia Consulting Services. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us today. So to get us started, can you tell me a bit about yourself, your experience, and more about what Metanoia Consulting Services does?
Sure. I am a leadership and career coach, so I predominantly work with mid-level leaders who are looking at kind of expanding and developing their careers, often progressing into more senior positions, or even looking at making moves across into different industries. I predominantly do that through coaching. I also do some leadership development work, so I'm speaking to lots and lots of people who are in a similar space to this all the time.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Our research shows that 57% of Australians have avoided a new job or promotion due to fear of failure. From your experience, what do you think are the biggest factors driving this hesitation today?
I think there's a few things that are going on in this space, and I think the first thing really is around job security and market uncertainty. So I feel that lots of people are hesitant to take a risk in messing things up or failing spectacularly because of the fact that if they do, they're worried about what the repercussions could look like and the lack of opportunity in the job market. I also think that a second piece is around we're seeing record levels of mental health issues being raised, where there's lots of conversation around burnout. And I think when we're looking at people taking a step up in their careers and taking those types of risks, you often need to have some energy in the tank to be able to push through the difficult, challenging times and to kind of bounce back from any challenges that you might face. So when you've got people sitting in a position of exhaustion and burnout and already feeling a lot of stress in the roles that they're currently in, I think that they're a bit scared of making that move and not having the, I don't like the word resilience, but that ability to really bounce back and withstand the pressure of a new role.
Yeah, I definitely hear you.
Yeah. And the other thing I think is going on is I think that in a lot of spaces, company culture can be something that really holds people back. When you've got a culture of blame, or you've got cultures where failure is not encouraged, you don't have a learning and growth mindset in that culture, there's a high likelihood that people aren't going to put themselves out there because the risk feels too great. The benefit of the reward is not necessarily as obvious to them.
Yeah, definitely. We see it for in our job seekers. The job security piece has definitely become higher on their priority list, and learning and development as well. So it marries what you're saying. What kind of impact can holding back out of fear of failure have on not just someone's career growth, but also for opportunities and culture within a workplace?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, I think we look around us and you see the companies that are most successful are the ones where they have a risk-taking culture, where they really encourage fast failure and learning from those failures and improving and evolving kind of consistently. And if you have this fear of failing happening within your organization, then people are less likely to take a risk, which means that we're missing opportunities. We're missing opportunities for product development, to understand how we can build our culture more effectively. We're missing opportunities for leaders to learn and grow because feedback is likely not flowing up and down that chain very effectively. And I think the fallout of that is, for some organisations, catastrophic. I think the organisations that get this right are the ones who are really going to flourish into the future, particularly when we're in this space of such significant change from a technology perspective across all industries.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Through our research, we found that older generations such as Gen X are the most likely to avoid promotions because of fear of failure, while younger generations are more likely to stay silent at work to avoid mistakes. Why do you think this fear shows up differently across generations, and how do the impacts differ between them?
I wonder. This stat made me very curious about what's going on. And one of my hypotheses is that, the older generation have been there, done that. They've seen that, they've got the T-shirt, they've seen the challenges of speaking up in cultures that, in a different time, the cultures they would have grown up in would be very different organizational cultures, very different leadership styles to where we're at today. So I feel like there's probably a piece of that going on with the Gen X. I think with the younger generation, I feel like we've got this generation of youngsters who are coming through who we know have higher levels of mental health challenge. We know that social media has a massive impact on how they perceive themselves and others. And I can't help but feel that the environment that they've been raised in is impacting this need to be perfect, or this perception of being perfect and having the right answer and doing the right thing. And so I wonder if the silence is related to this fear of not being perfect, or the fear of looking silly, and maybe not yet having built the resilience to bounce back from tripping over and maybe not looking in the brightest of lights for a moment. I think that there's a lot of pressure on young people to have this perception of perfection, which is really unattainable.
Yeah, I definitely catch myself with my own children making sure that I'm not expecting perfection, but sometimes it happens. So I do hear you with that one. What practical steps or advice would you give both employees who may be unsure about taking the next step, and to the employers looking to create an environment that encourages that risk taking and growth?
So from an employee perspective, there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is perspective taking. So when you're looking at a risk, really starting to unpack, what is the risk here? What is the actual risk here? And where is my ego or my emotion caught up in that risk? So I feel like that perspective piece, if you've got a magnifying glass, something looks really big, but when you zoom out, is it actually that big in the scheme of things? And if you take a longer term view, what's the risk versus reward? What's the lesson? What's the learning? And with a lot of clients that I work with, what we talk about is, if we adopt a learning mindset, then the risk diminishes in size because we're thinking about what the opportunity is rather than what the risk is. Another thing that I always talk to people about is lean on your strengths. Understand the character strengths that you have, your personal strengths, and lean on those when you're taking a risk, because I think that risk taking is a really important part of living. It's an important part of building our careers. And if we're not taking risks, we're kind of stagnating. And I think the last piece of advice I would give to employees in that space is, be kind to yourself. You're never going to be the master of something that you've just taken on. So enjoy that learning journey. Enjoy being the beginner. Enjoy taking those steps to get to be able to run. So enjoy that process. And I think for organizations, it's really around, how do you encourage failure in your organizations so that employees don't have to fear it? How do you build the biggest lessons into your weekly meetings? How do you encourage a culture that celebrates learning over perfection, and that then will create this kind of forward momentum for the organisation and for employees overall.
Great advice, some advice that I'll definitely take on for my own team. Thank you so much for your time today, Melanie. We really appreciate you coming on board and giving us some great tips to move forward. And again, reach out to Melanie at Metanoia Consulting Services if you want any further advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much.